everyone. It's so good to see you again today. I can't wait to dive into our topic because this is just about the time that it can get, if we created a vision, we're struggling with parts of it, or, um, we don't we're not sure if we haven't created a vision. Maybe we're stuck because there's things that just don't feel good to us. And everyone deserves to have a vision, have some things that they want to grow into, places that you want to go, so your life doesn't stay the same. And that's how we get to be more of who we're meant to be, and more of live with more joy, and that's what it's about. We all do have challenges, and we all have moments, and sometimes much longer than moments, that are challenging, but we're also supposed to live with love and joy and get to share that. And creating a vision is part of that. So, what we were going to talk about a little bit is when it is hard to create a vision, when you've created one, but it doesn't feel good. And maybe things aren't going the way you want them to in certain areas. We're talking about using language to help ourselves. And the first thing that we want to do is to acknowledge. And if you come on board, I'd love for you to jump in and say hi and let me know you're here so we can have a conversation. That would be fantastic. But sometimes we don't really realize that the negative track in our brain is affecting our ability to move forward, and we don't even know what we're thinking. So it helps if my alter ego's here, Dr. Lucette. And so sometimes it helps if we kind of examine, what you want that's not going well or doesn't feel good, because you may start to recognize some thoughts that you're telling yourself, like I can't do this, or for instance, if you want to create a bigger income for yourself, maybe that gap in your vision is big enough that it doesn't feel good. And so there's words like, what if I could do something I really love and make X amount of money? Hey, Christina, how are you doing today? Can't wait to hear your comments and input here. Um, so, if you're going from, if you've got a big gap in where you are and where you want to be, sometimes, and you don't feel like you're making movement, sometimes we're telling ourselves things that we don't even realize. Negative thoughts, they've been such a part of our life for so long, we don't recognize them. And for me now, a lot of times I catch myself, I catch what I'm actually thinking, and sometimes I'm blown away. And once you catch it, then you have the opportunity to start transitioning that. Hey, Victoria, how are you doing? I would love if you guys have any negative phrases in your head that you want to play with how to transition them. You pop them on there so we can actually play with them, and you can start to see how it works. But you can say to yourself, what if I could live in a different neighborhood? What would I like if I had the choice? Hey, Jackie, how are you doing today? So glad to see you here. Hi, Christy. Can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. And Victoria, um, you can start playing with it so you can start visualizing it in a way that feels good. Because sometimes if we say, I want to live in $1 million home, or I want to live, and it's a big stretch, sometimes it doesn't feel real. And then we don't feel good inside. And it's so important for things actually happening for us, for it to feel good, feel exciting, feel joyful. And so the what if game can help us a lot. Or is it possible? Is it possible that I could have a job that I really love, that makes X amount of money, more than what you're making now? Is it possible? What would it look like if I could imagine that? And start to write that down and start to play with it in a way that feels playful and feels good. And if you write anything and it's not feeling good, back up just a little bit and play with it until it feels good, because that good feeling is such an important part of how your visions start to come to life. Christina says, I have been finding it difficult to create goals this year. It hasn't necessarily been hard in the past, but I feel like I've been in a spot where there's so much going on that I can't even fathom something else because I can't figure out how I'm going to make it happen. And that's a really important thing because part of letting in the space for God, the universe, to help us, which the love and the magic in the universe always wants more for us and always wants us to get to have that. It's us believing it and trusting it and putting it out there without the how. But that can be really difficult when you're struggling. And so that's where what if? What if? What if this could happen in my life? What would that look like? How would I feel if I got to do this? So you take the how out of it by playing the game, the what if game, is it possible game. Um, Imagine just how I would feel if I had this, if I was doing this. And imagine if you want to live in a place that's more like a beach, or then imagine what the sand feels like in your feet. Play with that aspect instead of how am I going to get there. Play with the feeling aspect of it, of fun things without, when it starts to feel like you start, the how starts to coming, back up and go in a different way that feels better. Like play with it, be playful with it. Does that help, Christina? I'm happy to answer more questions around that because I would love to get it where it felt like something you could play with and do. And this, if you can play with it enough that it feels good enough, you can write down part of it and you can play with it in your imagination and you can smile when you're thinking about it and without feeling the stress of how. Just, you're not even necessarily at this point making it a vision. You're just imagining things that could happen that you would enjoy. And because really we want to get to the point where we can trust that the universe can help us with the how and believe that that's possible. But we start with finding things that make us feel good, because that feeling, that place of feeling good is lining up with the universe. Honestly, when you can imagine it and it feels good, you're in a space for that to happen. So you could just stay in that space with that. And when that starts to when you start to begin to have things happen because you can imagine them in simple things like piece by piece, you know, imagining just a better feeling, a job that makes you feel better. How would you feel if you were working with coworkers that you enjoyed and that were supportive, and focus around how that feels and playing with that feeling without imagining how you're going to get that job. Just what would it feel like if I had that job? What would it feel like? What would I love to do? What jobs would I enjoy without worrying about the how? And just how does that feel? And when you do that, it's crazy, but the hows start to come because you aren't really in charge of the hows. You're in charge of getting yourself in the place of imagining feeling good and in these different and aspects of it. Victoria says, I'm in the initial stages of trying to find a new home and struggling to trust the process. Boy, do I can relate to that. And I actually, I got to getting this home kind of went the hard way around for me because I was struggling to trust also. Um, and so if it helps, if your why is important enough, as in, you really have some strong reasons why you want a new place, that can help you to and maybe, in the initial stages, sometimes where we start as looking and then it doesn't look very doable. And I don't know where you're at with Victoria, but if what you're looking for seems either out of price reach wise, or, out of range price wise, or you're not sure where you want to live and that feels overwhelming, then take us, if it's money, then you want to take that out of the equation and imagine the most perfect place, and just keep imagining the most perfect place and let the money be out of the equation, and maybe even stop looking for a minute and let the universe, like when you feel that intuition, that inspiration to go look, then go look. Spend your time imagining and go look whenever you feel that inspiration to go look. And then if it starts to not feel good again, walk away from that part of it. If you're in a time crunch, that's a little bit more challenging in the sense that it can make it harder for you to get in that space that feels good. So hopefully you started enough ahead of time. You don't really have that going on, Victoria, but happy to hear more about that. Jackie says, I love the GPS analogy of just put the where you want to end up out to the universe. I take action, I find it'll work, I drive, but the GPS somehow gets me to my destination. That's good too. And the other thing is sometimes I like the other part of the GPS analogy too, where sometimes we haven't been willing to own where we are. And you don't want to stay in that space and you don't want to wallow in that or judge yourself. But sometimes if we don't even know where we are, we don't have much to give the GPS. If I'm in Kansas City, but I think I'm in San Antonio, the directions to get to Phoenix are a little different. And if we're if we're not trusting a little bit in the journey, which is kind of what Jackie's saying, you can keep going in a circle because you keep going back to where you were coming from with your thoughts, right? And so it's nice to, when you can just let a little bit of imagination get in there and let because as you let that intuition come into play and you meditate some so you can give your brain a rest from your thoughts so that God can come in and guide you. Oh, because he will so much what you want. Christy says, every year I try to do something that scares me. Last year I published Dear Younger Self and spoke on a stage. This Saturday I'm in a modeling shoot. That's awesome. Never something I'd ever do before. I'm excited but petrified, but I do want to publish my thriller novel this year. Where I have trouble is having the income to sustain a home on my own. I imagine a beautiful cozy cottage in a place that feels like Scotland or Ireland. I want an office library with my piano. I will finish my master's this year and was recently hired as a professor at a local community college. So I do believe God has me. I need to trust him. Christy, so much. It's trusting the God, the universe, right? And it's trusting that we're right where we're supposed to be and that we are on our journey. And sometimes we accidentally slow it down because when we get worried about the how or when we're struggling to believe it can happen, but God, the universe always still has us and always is pouring love in for the minute that we can see that we let it in. I love knowing that because so many times, and I'll have an aha moment about a place where I'm creating resistance. And resistance to our income is often just not believing that we're worthy of it. And so that is, again, one of the reasons we're going to do self-love in February. And I'm creating a new self-love program because I know many of my blocks and many of the times when I'm shutting things out, it comes back to that. It's really me. It isn't, yes, we're not trusting that, but we're not trusting we're worthy of God, the universe, providing that for us, right? But each little step of the way, look at what all you've accomplished, Christy. You've been published in a book. You're a published internationally best-selling author. You've been on the stage. You've had your program for blind deaf students, be on Paula Abdul's show. You've done so many amazing things. You are such an incredible person and an advocate for others. And so absolutely you are worthy of sustaining your home on your own and being fully independent and being as incredibly successful as you choose to be and having peace and having all those different pieces and living exactly where you want to. And so it's playing with how we feel about that, right? And we're all in this together. So that's the purpose of doing this, is us all lifting each other up. So we could also share posts during the week and encourage and uplift each other as well. Yes, Christina, you're right. So proud of Christy and all that she has accomplished. So proud of all that you have accomplished as well. Christina says, the income thing trips me up also. 100% comes from the worthiness piece. I'm working on retraining my brain on it. Me too, Christina. Me too. And I love you too, Christy. I love all of you. And, it's a work in progress for all of us to retrain our brain, but it's so beautiful to have more pieces to that. I love the fact that we can start playing with words to help ourselves, because we're told to write affirmations and they can help. But if you don't believe the affirmation and you don't feel good when you're saying it, you feel like you're spinning your wheels, and it doesn't go as well. Another thing, that appreciation is super helpful. The mirror exercise for worthiness, where you look in the mirror and say I love you, and you look into your eyes, is also helpful. And start, if you can find a way to trust that God loves you so much, the universe adores you, and you are worthy of everything, and just to let it in little pieces wherever you can. What if I could believe that I am worthy of that? What would it feel like if I trusted that, and this is the space I was occupying? And let yourself find your way to that feeling that way, and trust that the feeling place is what you're looking for. Anytime you're feeling good, you are lined up with God, the universe. And when you're not feeling good, it doesn't mean God doesn't want it for you. It means God does, and you're the one holding back. When I learned that, that was a game changer for me. Oh, oh, got it. And the same thing goes sometimes when we have resistance, we're actually judging others, not intentionally, because the less we judge ourselves and the more we let love in for ourselves, the bigger our capacity to let it in for others, and vice versa. But many of us are better and kinder at letting it in for others than ourselves, right? But we can't really let it in and do for others and be for others that allows their expansion, when we don't let it in for ourselves. And when you love so much the people around you, then you want to let that love in for yourself so you can be that person for them. That's what's helped me when I haven't felt worthy, is realizing that I know the people around me are worthy, and I want so much for them to feel that worthiness. And in order for that to happen, I have to let it in for me. I have to let that love in for me, because then I'm a conduit, right? I'm a conduit for that love coming in, flowing out. And that's love, that's income, because they're not separate. God doesn't judge us and say we can't have money, but we can have this. What we do with the money is part of our gift back, right? And that doesn't mean you can't enjoy it as well, because when you love and enjoying it, you're also spending it in ways that are helping other people. Every time you're spending money, someone is benefiting from that. And if you don't have it to spend, you don't have as much to give back to the universe, because money is energy, just like love is energy. And, time is energy, and it becomes finite when we're worried about it. And when we live more in a space of love and joy, the time seems to take care of itself. That's something I have to come back to myself. I'll find myself limiting, like saying I don't have enough time. And then, you know what, I'll give up the fun things. I'll say, well, I don't have time to go see my friend, or I don't have time. And when I go see my friend, the time expands. All of a sudden, I have the time and love and energy to do those things, and they're done. And the fluff falls away, the things that don't matter. I'm blown away by that. Then I realize that I'm giving, when I go see my friend, it fills me up, but it fills my friend up too. And I forget that sometimes. And that's such an important part of the what if game, and having that beauty around it. Right? I'm glad to see that somebody else feels that too, Christina. That is the thing I've been the worst about, and it is one of my major goals this year. And I did it to myself just this weekend. I was saying I was supposed to meet a friend for breakfast yesterday, and I was like, I really don't have time. I need to do all these things. And then I was like, that's crazy. If I think about what I would want to do, if I think what brings me joy and I let that be first, I'm like, well, of course it would be go have breakfast with my friend. And you know what? We spent so much more time at breakfast than I imagined, had the most marvelous time, and my day fell into place perfectly. Everything that needed to get done got done in such a more joyful way. And I think sometimes it's almost like we punish ourselves because we think we haven't got everything done. So we punish ourselves by not going to see the friend. Of course, we're punishing the friend as well, who was excited and wanted to see us, or the activity, I've done that so much. And then I think my production goes way down because I'm not in that good space. So I didn't really benefit myself by giving up the fun thing. I actually had a negative impact on my life and on what I could create and what I would create for that day. Isn't that crazy? It's exactly right, Christina. And it's like we make the I have a list of things I want to do, and some things I need to do, and a lot of it's things I want to do, but that are very, useful as well. And somehow I turn that list into a challenge, like a not feel good thing when there's so many things on it that are meant to feel good. And so that's the what ifing, like, what do I really want to do? What would really feel good? What would it be like if I decided to make sure the fun thing came first? What's that like? And for me, it's been a game changer. Um, and yeah, it's self love. But what it does is it transforms what I have to give others, and it transforms my imagination and my vision. And isn't that crazy? Who would think that was part of it? But it is, because a joyful life is a life that's, as you live it, the vision becomes bigger, becomes something you can imagine, but something more real. So give yourself that time and space. Set dates to meet new people, make new friends, um, explore the environment and you're in if you're in someplace new, or even if you're not. Challenge yourself to make time for people that you care about, but be willing and open to meet new people, because that's part of a huge part of a what if bigger vision, right? Is getting out of the today rut and creating what you really want and love. So, does anyone have any more questions today around the imagining and creating a more magical, playful vision and not worrying about how big it is right now? Because as you play into it and you allow stuff to happen, you'll start to see more stuff. Oh, what if God? When I was struggling to find this house, Victoria, I looked at a couple of houses that I didn't like as well, that were either, not clean, or just really, because I was looking for a rent house at the time. I've since purchased this house, didn't feel good. And then I got rejected for one of them. And then when I came to see this house, I adored it. But I thought, oh, there's no way. My credit rating won't go. They won't let me have the big dogs. I told myself all these stories without knowing if any of them were true, based on the possibility. And I didn't even call them back, even though I loved this house. And they called me back. And then I said, could it be God? Could it be the universe saying this is for me? I was at least willing to open the door to that. What if? What if this could be? And then they were fine with the dogs, and my credit rating was totally fine, and they were excited to have me move in. And he was an excellent landlord, and this was the only rental house he had. And 2 years in, when I adored my neighbors and loved my house and loved my neighborhood, and I asked him, would you consider, once I save up the money to put a down payment down, selling this to me? And he was like, yes, absolutely. And the most beautiful thing unfolded. Don't you think God and the universe had that all along? And I walked away from this house to begin with because I didn't believe I was worthy of it. I thought it was too good of a house. It was too big of a dream. And it wasn't. So you can find your way in. Oh, Christina, that's so weird. It's very similar to where I am right now. That's wild. I'm glad to hear it happened like that, because I'm in such a similar position. Isn't that funny? And it's perfect that you're here on this call and you hear this story, right? Because it opens your mind. What if? Is it possible? Dreams and imagination, letting our imagination in, being playful about it, and deciding that where we are now, your beautiful new space, whether that's your space for a while or your space and another beautiful place is coming open, it's a beautiful space that lets your imagination start to open up, right? And that's the gift. That is the gift. And for you, Victoria, I know the perfect place is going to open up, and you're going to start feeling it. Jackie says, totally possible, living in alignment with our authentic selves. Yes. And knowing when we're in alignment and when we're not. The first few times that I created some magic, I had no idea how I did it. I honestly didn't know how to go back and repeat it. I was just stumbling along. And, 10 years and a lot of experiences and a lot of uh, different learning things. And now I really am clear about it. And I know when I'm not in alignment. And sometimes I know what I need to do to get in alignment. And sometimes you don't. And that's where you play the what if game and the magical game. And so it bubbles up. So you figure out, oh, that's what's going on. Um, because there's always a new challenge. And the goal is to use it as a bouncing off point to more, right? It's not a place to stay, it's not a place to wallow. And I've done plenty of that. Plenty of that. It's so fun to have the tools not to have to stay there anymore. So that is what I love getting to share with everyone. So I look forward to more questions from you guys. Love to have more questions through the week. Next week is our last meeting this month. We have February is self love. This month has been vision. If you have something that you want to, um, that you would love to see us do for next week, something in your vision, something in your journey that you would like to put on the plate for next week, we'd love to hear from you because we'll be creating the topic in the next 24 hours and posting that because I really want more than anything for you guys to have the opportunity to live your most magical, extraordinary lives, which is just, you know, loving our ordinary and from this space of where we are, learning to love and appreciate where we are while being excited and joyful about where we're going. And that's so fun. And that's the opportunity that we all have and the journey that we can choose to get better at and claim and own and dance with. And what we get to give back from that space is just as magical. You know, our journey, when we are in love with life and enjoy, what we have to give back is so much. And it just is magical. It's not like a force to give back. It just happens from living in that space of love and joy. And as Jackie says, in alignment with our authentic selves, with who we are and who we get to choose to be and who we're continuing to grow into because it's a journey. There's no destination. It's a journey, a joyful, magical, loving journey. So I love you guys, and I can't wait to meet up with you again and hear more about where you want to go, any stumbling blocks you feel like you have. And I am looking forward to seeing you again next Monday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. Hope you have a fantastic rest of your day and a fantastic week. Love you guys.